Hello, everyone, everybody. How are you today? How are you today, my friends? Uh, mm, Wait a minute. How are you today? What am I doing? Yeah. Hold on a second. Yeah, that doesn't help. Alright, that doesn't help. Okay, well, whatever. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Mad NPC. The new Serbian reg. Schumacher is never here because I guess, I don't know why. He's probably finished studying law or something. I don't know. But we've got analysis stream Thursday. So happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate Thanksgiving. Um, I have this friend who's like always talking about how Thanksgiving is like racist connotation because the settlers killed a lot of Native Americans, but it's a holiday that brings people together. Let's not look at it in a all these Native Americans died at the hands of settlers. Okay, it's a holiday that brings people together. Um, this is what it is in modern times. If you're Canadian, if you're American, happy Thanksgiving. Um, got a lot of games from people here. It's about peace, ultimately. I've got games from Acerbate, Mr. Slow. Chapter 1 is Snedsteg. Iobatis, who's not here but will watch the VOD. Mr. Crumbleholm. That's an awesome name, by the way. Nefudov versus Crumbleholm. Crumbleholm Nefudov. Nefudov. My game is optional. My games are always optional. I honestly don't like. I don't like showing my games. I really don't. I don't like showing the games I win because I feel like I'm showing off, and I don't like showing the games I lose because it brings back bad memories, and my draws are boring. So I don't like showing my games. If we need a game, we'll look at my game from Sunday that I lost, and for interesting questions, and Sun Prism. Okay, so now NPC has sent one too. Mad isn't crazy or just angry. Copy. See, if we take mad from the British English perspective, it's usually like insane. But if we say mad from the American perspective, it implies like anger or angry. So, all right. If Nefudov was to call someone mad, they would be crazy. All right. Play. Learn, study my studies here. I feel so much better. Yesterday, my friend Vorpal Bunny, By the way, I want to talk about this for a second. Vorpal Bunny filled in for me playing in the tournament, Tuesday tournament, and I haven't banned a few people, obviously, that still play in our Tuesday tournaments. But guys, come on. I need to stream more regularly, make better tournaments. Okay. But we only had 10, 11 players for yesterday's. I didn't play, I didn't stream because I didn't feel well. And, even from the 11 players, like half of them dropped out. So by the end, we only had like 4 players. We didn't have enough players to play 5 rounds. But Giachas or whatever, he was playing another game while he forfeited his game against Vorpal Bunny. I was like, dude, that's not polite. How could you do that? That's just not polite. Please don't play in my tournament and forfeit against this strong player while you're playing another game. But I want people to play in our Tuesday tournaments. Now I can't really criticize anyone because obviously Saiji didn't play, but I was feeling under the weather. But I'm much better today. We're fully recovered. That was fast. And it's a wonder what a little Tylenol can't do, despite what the disgraceful RFK Jr. says. And I'd take it if I was pregnant too. So we've got Astrobate, Mr. Slow. Hopefully Mr. Slow will be here on Turkey Day, although I don't think they celebrate Turkey Day. They do eat turkeys. International Grandmaster Suat Adalik, who's a good friend of mine, he's from Turkey. He's part, Turkish, and I always call him a turkey, so I wanted to send him a message saying Happy Turkey Day for him, even though he obviously lives in Turkey, doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving. I thought it'd be funny. So we've got Mr. Slow's submission of Geller versus Reshevsky. Chapter 1 is Snedsteg, Gibatis, and we went over this Crumble Home and Crumble Door. My Game, Sun Prism, and now Salman. Oh, we got a real game from, wow, Nakam Salman. That was some old. Anyway, whatever, Salman Rushdie. Alright, so Astrobate is always our warm-up. This is the fun first game for the analysis stream. Guys, there's a discount on subs if you happen to have enough money to donate some subs here. I think it's like 35% off gift subs for 4 days if you gift like five gift subs or something. And another announcement. We should make it just a show. The Sladgy show. I should be like the Mustache show. It's just a show. My stream is a show. So the announcement for today's show is I'm going to Prague next week, and I'm not going to be streaming for the better part of 2 weeks. So, just so you guys know, we're streaming tonight, Friday, the Sunday simul, and then I'm going to be out for the better part of 2 weeks. All right. Astrobate, let me flip the board here. You're black, guys. No gift subs this week. Obviously, I didn't stream. This is our first stream of the week, but not our last. We have Friday and Sunday. We skipped the Tuesday. Good evening, Mad NPC. I am agnostic. Agnostic. That's funny. Agnostic doesn't matter. It's not a religious festival, No, Thanksgiving has no religious connotation. All right, so festivals are nice. All right, so we just eat, we feast. It's a feast. It's a feast. Feast is traditional. E4, it's like E4 C5. Astrobate is black. Knight F3. Knight C6 now. Why did we tell Astrobate to play Knight C6 instead of G6? To incorporate Knight C6 more. Why would I do that? Am I crazy? Why would I do that? Because I wanted to have to suffer facing the Rossalimo? No. The irony is that I told Astrobate, because Knight C6 is a better move than G6, that's not the reason. The reason why I told him to play this is because if you play G6, people are going to start, especially noobs who are rated 1502, they're going to start going off pissed. So you're going to get all kinds of crap now. And especially Bishop C4. You're begging for Bishop C4. It's actually a good move. It's actually a good move against G6. Where it's usually it's not a bad move. And it's not here. And the irony is they play it anyway. I mean, there are people who are so stupid and unprincipled that they play it now. No good player is going to play this in this position. Unless they're really very strange, Or it's a prearranged draw or something. Perfect move for this. By the way, this is a perfect move for a prearranged draw. If you want to, Sahovic versus Enver Bukic. Pretty strange. But anyway, Knight C6, Bishop C4. Also not great. But I can't tell you guys how many people who aren't tournament players but play online play this move. I just want to shoot myself in both sides of the brain with loaded guns because this is such a waste of time and just ridiculous, you know. Black can just play e6. It's a really stupid move for white because of e6 and only because of e6. The other move that black can play here, which is also not bad, I would say, is knight f6. Notice knight f6 has the highest score for black of all available moves. The trap is, of course, e5, d5. Vachier Gukash. Not a good idea there. Anyways, e6 best, right? Castles. Now, there's this guy, Slavko Cicak, who lives in Sweden. He's a grandmaster. I don't know what he does, because if living in Sweden, you must not be a professional chess player. Queen e2, and you see there, Cicak, not Cicak. Cicak against Catronius. This guy really plays this move, Queen e2, all the time. And the point is to stop d5. That's like his little pet system. It's still bad, though. Can you imagine playing this against Catronius? That's not a good idea, you know? Catronius, like, wrote books about how to play black in the Sicilian. Alright, whatever. So bishop c4, e6, castles. And so now you've got to be careful. Because if you play d5 too early, you're probably going to kind of justify white's setup. While it's playable to play d5, I think it's best played at the right moment. You know, you don't want to play d5, allowing white to get some kind of symmetrical French exchange variation, where he's quickly playing rook e1 check and developing and bringing his bishop back, or maybe going to b5. So we should wait here. My favorite move is a6, and I have all different kind of setups I play. But, you know, you need to develop your pieces. So this move puts pressure on white's position. It attacks the e4 pawn. I like it. You know, it's definitely a good move. I don't like d6. It's too passive. Not a good idea. I like a6, keeping the tension, taking control of b5, threatening Noah's Ark traps, and knight f6. And maybe if you want to be weird, you know, we could consider something like queen c7. But I honestly like a6 best, followed by knight f6. Azerbaijan play knight f6. So if white plays e5, again, you know, you have some options of d5. This is usually good if you get this sort of take scenario. That's white has very like zero control of the center in this position. So, and this is also possible. Luka Lenic. My name is Luka, and I live on the second floor. So, knight c3. Now, that's usually a mistake. White's more reliable option sometimes to play d3, defending pawn with pawn. Fedoseev Antipov. Amazing how some real players have played this for white. But knight c3, yeah, okay. So when you get the situation, I've told Astrobate a lot, you have to start calculating this pawn, you know, the piece fork. I don't know if you want to call it a pawn fork or a piece fork. But you have to start calculating. He did it. Wow, he did it. He's almost never done this. So every one of these forks needs to be evaluated on sort of like a one-by-one basis, you know, individual basis. So Azerbate following Boris Chatabashev. Again, a 23-44 playing this with white. It's like absurd, man. Get me this 23-44. Get me a match with them, man. Sponsor a match. Who would play this with white? So knight takes e4 and d5. And now the question is bishop e5, bishop d3, or queen e2. Maybe even d3. Sometimes people even do d3. And it may not be that stupid. How bad is d3 ultimately? I like to think of this as a... It's kind of like a Budapest Gambit with colors reversed. But one thing that I've explained to Azerbate in the past is that if you get this type of scenario, oftentimes they will go here. And watch what Shatlabashev did here. He didn't take, this is very important. He played c4. That's absolutely key. c4 move, exploiting that bishop on d3. We'll get our piece back on our terms, or more on our terms. So we can see here, Dimitrov, Shatlabashev takes, and now he takes on e4, which drives the knight back to the stupid square, e1. And black has totally dominant control of the center. Dimitrov Pavel. There's some little kid from Bulgaria with the same name. Well, he's not a little kid, but anyway, he's a kid, like a prodigy. I wonder if that's probably like a father of the kid. All right. So anyway, bishop b5 was the game. Now we really got... oh no, Ronald Simpson versus Yuri Lapshin, 2009. Pretty recent game. Probably played like the Marshall or something like that. 2009. So 95, yes. And then again we got a Budapest Gambit vibe here. But this is not obvious for me. Lapshin's very, very good tactically. He decided to play queen d5. But Astorbate's move deserves serious consideration. I mean, bishop d7 is definitely an option. So I don't know which one of these moves is better. With bishop d7, if they take, we're taking with the bishop. And then we're going to accept this pawn structure. But we're still up to central pawn. White can gang up on it, though. I have a little bit of a feeling like white is okay here. Because we don't really want to play f5. So let's say rook e1, queen d5, queen e2. And if you play f5, white can play maybe d3. This is close, actually, because we can take... So I'm thinking that maybe we roll the dice here, and we even play something like king f7. We're up a pawn, for what it's worth. A central pawn. Probably the best option there. It's possible that Lapshin's move is better, like queen d5. But do we have any other options? Not really, right? No other options. The other guy, 2200, played this, and I do think that this move should be considered. d4 taking the bishop, d4, queen d1, rook takes d1, and then b6 with advantage to black because the bishop is very strong and unopposed. But, I mean, certainly not a winning position for black yet. Okay, so, I also want to make the point that, knight takes e4 itself is probably good, but again, you want to judge it carefully. Every example of this. I don't like d5, but I do like, for example, other moves. I'm surprised no one played a6 here. I'm a little bit surprised by that, because a6 looks pretty good. I also feel like we're getting close to someone on sound type stuff, where he did like knight d5 against me or something in a similar type position. But anyways, all right, Asturbate, this has got to be okay. Knight e4, knight e4, d5, bishop b5, takes, and now knight e5, and now queen d5 was Lapshin. You played this. He plays knight takes d7. Okay, this is the other possibility. This is interesting because now you don't have a light square bishop. Your queen guards against double pawns, but the problem is the e4 pawn. And the question is, can you defend that pawn? Not only can you defend the pawn, should you defend the pawn? The real question. And Asturbate, played a nice idea here. Rook e1. I think maybe this is better. And the reason why I think queen e2 might be better is that in some instances, white could play f3 if black plays f5, and in that case, maybe the rook would have some value on f1. If we're going to end up playing queen e2 anyway, maybe he should do that right away. So rook e1. Then again, maybe we support that and take with the queen, but we'll see. So Azerbaijan could defend the pawn with f5. This is a risky move, but it's worth considering. Okay, you didn't want to do it. Fine. Now he has to give up his bishop. If he plays bishop f1, we have a legitimate question. Are you gonna try to protect that pawn? Maybe queen d5 is interesting now, a la your option, or sometimes queen d4, but that can be hit by c3. But I'm thinking f5 looks like Nimzovich, the famous game Alekhine-Nimzovich in the French, where Alekhine got him to play f5 and then he fatally weakened himself. Nimzovich did. You don't have to do that. This square is very weak. This is the important idea. The problem with white's position, ultimately, isn't necessarily about the material. You can try to hang on to the Budapest Gambit pawn, or you can play for another advantage here. In this case, very good control of the center and the d4 pawn. The d4 square. And if white plays c3, he has a backward d pawn. It's simply a Budapest Gambit. You don't have to defend the pawn. But instead white plays bishop takes c6, queen takes c6, and then white lost his mind completely. Because white needs to play this accurately. Queen e2 first, inducing black to play f5. And then you can decide what to do. Maybe d3. But he played d4, which for you is perfect because you have rook d8. You can just not have to play f5. I don't think you want to take on d4, but I like rook d8. So I don't like what you did here, Azerbaijan. You brought his queen out to an active position on d4 unnecessarily. With the queen on d4, it can attack g7. It's active attacking e4. Don't help the opponent develop his pieces. Castle queenside is a little risky for my tastes. I don't think this is great with so many pawns moved up over here. So, what about e takes d3? Oh, yeah, okay, of course. We need to think about en passant, right? But it's really important. This also helps white develop, though. Queen takes. His queen is extremely useful here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. White is down a pawn, but I think he almost has compensation. It's not easy for black to... Alright, bishop e7. And if if queen g3 castles, you obviously have, bishop h6, bishop f6. Everything is under control. You're just in time, basically. You can also consider bishop d6. Yeah, I agree, MPC. That's also a good move. It may be better. I don't know. It's a tough call, isn't it? Because this is strong too. It's a very tough call. Either rook d8 or en passant. Maybe Azerbaijan simply didn't stop to think about en passant. Took here, develops the opponent queen for him. But he had a very nice trick, rook d8. Okay, I forgot about this. But I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure if it was worth it to bring that queen out. Because white can play queen e5. This looks very active. Black has a lot of options. I think this is the better move for white here. Centralized, it attacks this, it can fall back to g3, keeps an eye on e4. He makes a mistake now. He plays queen e3, which is very passive compared to e5. Don't see any plus side in queen e3. In fact, it's really bad. So he's giving Astrobate bishop c5 with tempo now. Yeah. So he had to go here. White has to play queen e5, keeping an eye on g7, and yeah. That's funny, move 11. That's funny. The b file for white. It's hard to judge if move 11 is suggesting that as a joke or he's being serious. You know, one of those people is hard. Move 11 gifted subs, 5 gift subs. Get your discount here, 5 gift subs. The founder has spoken. But in general, move 11, I think we should avoid, you know, trading queens down a pawn. And Mr. Slow now with matching donation of 5 gift subs. Double 5 gift subs. 10 gift subs from the team. Nice job, guys. Queen e3 question mark. Bishop c5. Winning position for black. And now the really reasonable queen f4. Keeping an eye on this. Keeping an eye on this. You know, obviously queen g3 is more natural. But white's losing now. What I like best about this position in this game is that Astrobate wasn't greedy. He never got materialistic and managed to never have to play f5. And he played a very sensible game. Now bishop e3. And I think at this point, you know, now we're like fully developed and all bets are off. Like f5 is becoming more and more reasonable every move. Now that we're castled, this becomes part of a giant, you know, Tetris on the king side. You'd be completely justified here to play f5. Instead, Astrobate plays bishop d6. Okay, you know, you're like hunting the queen. Queen g4. Now f5 for sure is a good move. This is a roller. Extremely strong for black. He does eventually play it. This move is a little materialistic, but I think it's still okay. You know, it's a healthy pawn. There's no penetration on the 7th. I think the only question is, like, where you're going if your queen gets attacked. Like, as move 11 pointed out, the b file. You know, on bishop h6, by the way, you have bishop e5. This is important. And that's what happened. That's what happened. Thank you, Mr. Slow. Hello, sire. Well, the thing about f5 is that you have a dark square bishop. So your dark squares aren't weak. Your dark square bishop covers your dark square weaknesses. If you had a light square bishop, f5 would be horrible, you know, if you had just a light square bishop. But the fact is, the dark squares are covered. You know, you can defend these dark squares with your dark square bishop, i.e., you know, bishop e5. So, yeah, f5 is not bad. He ends up playing it after this, f4, f5. And that's fine. And that's even better now, because this is a protected passed pawn. This is game over. Black is 2 pawns up and has a protected passed pawn on e4. Queen g3. And now he has a little dubious moment here. I got in trouble with this at the World Senior against the guy I lost to in round 3, where I chucked his king out of the center. If you need a tempo, I get it. But otherwise, our best bet is to not chase that king away from its exposed position on g1. So, bishop d4 check, it looks like a mistake. Because he's got the mate threat there. Though maybe it's not if we calculate deep enough. I don't know. Do you really want to do this? Because ultimately it blocks your rook. It drives his king to where it needs to go anyway. You know, so I guess the question would be, should you play a different move here? Bishop takes b2. Greedy as it seems, white doesn't really have a good response. It's over, I think. I think I'd rather not play bishop d4 check. So king h1, rook f7. rook c1 with a strange, he's afraid of bishop f2. Now queen f2. Trading queens. Yes. Good job, Asterbate. He doesn't always trade queens when he's up material. Yeah, taking on b2, I agree. I just talked to Asterbate about being materialistic or not materialistic enough. Here's the interesting thing. I was saying I never really talk to beginners about this because I just assume everyone does it. But do you keep an account of the material in your head when you're playing the game? It's like the most 3-year-old thing ever. Of course you should keep account of the material. It's extremely basic, right? Most people are materialistic, and I take for granted that they always count the material. But with Asterbate, I'm not sure. It's very possible he doesn't count the material at all. He doesn't even know how many pieces anybody has. And so he's thinking about chess in a different way. But trading queens when you're up material, definitely a good idea. So we're winning here. You got 3 on 5 or 5 on 3. I don't like this buddy system. Buddy system. Just in general, we always want to use the buddy system where the pawns stay together. This pawn is in front of the other kids. This kid is running across the street. He's running across the street. You're like a crossing guard. And the little kid is running across the street without anybody holding his hand. He could get hit by a car. It's not funny, The analogy sounds funny, but he's crossing on a red light. I mean, this is not good, dude. Go gradual. Back rank. Rook e8, rook d1. h6. Luft. The pawn should advance together, right? Maybe e5. Yeah, I like h6. And yeah, white resigns. It's true, though, in this particular position, he can't blockade e2. Yeah, I forgot white's rook was on d1. I was thinking it was on c1. And he had rook e2 and rook here, and plus you've got h6 trapping the bishop. So, okay, this is over. Bishop d8. He does have that square, but e2 is very good. Game over. All right. He gave you a whole queen. Nothing to see here, folks. For the sake of completeness, I like to show the whole game, but Asterbate's usually very proud of his checkmates. By the way, you probably want to check him back here. I guess it doesn't matter. All right, here, and then you got the best of both worlds. You win all the pawns, and this is very exciting. Thank you, guys. All right, Asterbate. No stalemates. All right, good job. So that was a long game by Asterbate standards. 48 moves, long analysis for what seemed like a very basic game. But I'd like to take my time. So, Geller versus Sammy Reshevsky. This is Mr. Slow's submission. Thanks, Move11 and Mr. Slow, for your games. If I seem a little hyper tonight, it's because I already have my coffee. And I'm halfway into my coffee. Feel good. Yesterday I was under the weather. I feel way better. All right. So let's flip the board. The theme is Geller games. Mr. Slow is Stalag mates. Stalag 17. Rook and bishop versus what? Rook and bishop versus bishop. That's a theoretical win. All right, so Geller's white. It's a Sicilian. Reshevsky played the Sicilian. He also played e4, e5. People were talking about Reshevsky in the bus when I was traveling at the World Senior. There was this American guy, Fred Ryan, who was playing, and he was telling stories that I had heard as well. Like Fedorovich, who knew Reshevsky from New York, who's a friend of mine, he always talked about how unpleasant Reshevsky was. And he had a reputation for being kind of mean. So I don't know much about Reshevsky personally, but he was like teaching chess still when I was a kid. You could see the ads in Chess Life. I was tempted to like take lessons, but New York was too far. I couldn't travel to New York. There was no good chess players in Philadelphia when I was growing up at all. Maybe an IM, and not a very strong one in my whole area. I'm like the strongest player ever from my region of South Jersey, which is, and 50 years ago it was like still like farmland basically. Um, so if you wanted to take chess lessons from a strong player, you'd have to go to New York City. And I remember Lev Albert maybe started around that time giving lessons, and Reshevsky advertising in Chess Life. But I can't imagine taking lessons from someone who had a kind of reputation as like a mean kind of guy. Secondly, he was a legendary player. He was a prodigy. So imagine the chess career. I mean, Reshevsky giving simul's when he was like 8 years old. He was a prodigy, literally. And he's still playing when he's like 70, 80 years old. So what a chess career, And he was one of the best players, in American history. And maybe, well, the greatest player before, the greatest modern player before Fischer. Of course you have Morphy and then Marshall. But, of the 20th century born players, actually, when was Reshevsky born? Probably, early 1900s. But anyway, Geller White, enough history. It's a Sicilian. And one thing, though, that I do want to mention is that Reshevsky was not really highly regarded for his opening play. He wrote an excellent book. His biggest contribution to chess theory is The Art of Positional Play, which is a collection of analyzed games. Not all of Reshevsky's games, but a lot of them. One of my favorite books of all time. Just based on his presentation and the games themselves. It's an extremely important book. The title is very basic, The Art of Positional Play. And you think it's like a book for beginners, and essentially it is, but it's really a book for all levels. A great book. So, Knight c6, Knight c3, although this is my point, Reshevsky had a reputation for not being the greatest in the opening. Knight c3, d6 now. And this is kind of an unusual move order. In those days, the curious attack wasn't as extensively analyzed as it is today. So, later, like g4 would become known as White's most promising move here. But when I was growing up in the 80s, I don't think that g4 had been played that much, so you would get a lot of people transposing like Geller did here to the Scheveningen, but White also has g3. That's been played against me by some strong players. Like De Fermian probably played g3 against me. I had a game with Gufeld where I was on the rails, but I drew, I think Gufeld probably played this exact position against me. Another player of the Soviet school. I drew a very difficult game. I have it somewhere in my studies. Gufeld tortured me pretty hard, attacked me. But also f4 is a very strong move, very dangerous line. Because after knight f6, White plays bishop e3 and then can play queen f3 and not play a traditional Scheveningen, but something more aggressive with castling queenside, a la Emery Tate. No. All right, so, but Geller plays quietly. This is his typical move, bishop e2. And we transpose to a Scheveningen. All right, so knight f6 castles. This is well known, and I'm sure it was well known even back when this was played. It's in 1970. So 1970, you have a lot of people playing the Scheveningen, probably like the Hungarians coming out like Ribley, Dorian. Who knows? You know, a lot of strong players who play the Skaveningen. Kasparov later playing the Skaveningen in the 80s, but I mean, you know, we're talking 1970 here. Bishop e7. Nefedov plays this with white. Very common line. Bishop e3. Castles. And now, as we can see, like a lot of people play king h1, and I'm not really sure. King h1 it's a hesitation. It's a slight hesitation, but it takes the king off this diagonal. You know, the other moves that white can play include knight b3, avoiding exchanges of pieces, and a4, slowing down black's play on the queen side. But who knows? You know what the best move really is. f4 main line, and now Spassky played e5. I think. Well, I don't remember, against Karpov, probably. I don't even know. You know, like Spassky didn't play this Skaveningen a lot. Could he have played it against Fischer? I imagine, you know, Bobby would have played a Sozin or something, you know. Alright, so f4, black here can choose this e5 move, apparently, is the best scoring move. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how good's black score with e5, the move that shouldn't equalize. That's definitely like Karpov, Spassky. Tempo, you know, a tempo down. It does cast some doubt on, you know, it does cast some doubt on f4, by the way. Is for some reason it better to play king h1? Because one of the ideas, if black plays bishop d7, you can avoid the exchange of pieces with knight b3, and then the bishop on d7 gets in the way. And Garry Kasparov is playing like bishop c8, bishop b7 against Karpov in some, you know, games 10 years later. Because those pieces are conflicting, you know, interfering with each other. So I wonder, white's score is a tiny bit better with king h1. It's interesting. All right, so f4, Sammy plays bishop d7, and now knight b3, and that's the idea. Pieces are, they're blocked. So black doesn't have to play bishop d7, by the way. Yes, we see Spassky's move, right? What about a6, you know? This is an absolutely standard move, and will transpose to what we call the modern Skaveningen with a6. And it can also come out of a Najdorf. So bishop d7, I think I like a6 better. Knight b3. I remember this game now, Mr. Slow. Seeing the next move. Sammy played a5. It's very interesting. So this move, which is totally reminiscent of other games we've seen in the Boleslavsky, is another Karpov-Spassky game. I don't like a5, and a lot of strategic players are going to kind of not like this move, because look how weak b5 is. I've been taught that this is kind of a mistake. Certain situations, a5 is good. I think, I don't like it here. a4, and this idea, but white has this too. You know, white has b5 too. We both have weak squares, right? But what's the difference? Anybody? Karpov 2 plays white. Oh, of course he did. Karpov. We know who was on Karpov's team of trainers, right? We've talked about this a lot. Geller was an important influence on Karpov. Um, so yeah, Mr. Slow explained it. B5 is gone forever. You can't chase it away with a pawn, but B4 can be chased away by C3. That's important. It's very important. Maybe Tigran Petrosian can move his knight and play C3 later. So we got now E5 by Reshevsky. That's basically transposing to a type of what I just said. What's that opening called again? The Boleslavsky. Boleslavsky, not the name that rolls off your tongue, even if you don't have Alzheimer's. I'm not saying Boleslavsky every day, Bondarevsky. But I mean, this is a quite inflexible move by Black. There's another game, Geller Panchenko, 1982. He drew. Of course, he was considerably older in 82. But yeah, I mean, Black doesn't have that many options here. Knight b4. The problem with knight b4 is that e5 is, well, I mean, we lose control of e5. When you go with your knight to b4, you're losing control of these squares. You've got to watch out for things like e5. Maybe it's not good yet, but it could be at some point. With knight b4, I think bishop c6. But remember that we can put our knight back on d4. And I think that's the number one thing about e5. The best advantage of e5, the biggest advantage of playing e5 is that you take away this, knight d4, or any use of the d4 square for white. But the downsides are big too. By playing e5, we loosen those squares forever, the white squares forever. King h1, typical Geller move, right? Good prophylaxis, getting off that diagonal. And now knight b4. And so it goes, as Kurt Vonnegut would say. What do we play now? What would Nefedov play? Black has the ability to put more pressure on the e4 pawn. We can meet that with bishop f3. So the obvious move is queen d2. That strangely has never been played in this position. That is freaking unbelievable. Queen d2 has never been played. It's like easily the most natural move, right? Connecting the rooks, keeping c2 protected, keeping like bishop f3 in reserve. What else does it do? What doesn't it do? Protects against exchange sacrifices on c3. I don't understand how this isn't a reasonable move. It's very odd that no one's played that, in fact. Bishop f3, committing to bishop f3. Bishop b5, an interesting move. F takes e5, which is usually not that great. And then the weird move rook f2. I mean, rook f2 is a cool way of defending c2. This was played by Larson. And we've seen Geller with that diagonal in the past. This lost me a game, by the way. You guys may not have seen the game I lost in the first round of the Hungarian Team Championship, Boleslavsky Sicilian, where I let b6 go. Huge disadvantage of a5. This square burned me. It didn't lose the game, but it was an issue. And Geller has repeatedly used this diagonal, Mr. Slow, as you've probably seen. Bishop d7 seems to look good. Doesn't seem to look good in this kind of setup. Yeah, I mean, his plan is bishop c6. But the problem there is, I mean, it's somewhat useful to attack the a4 pawn. But yeah, I mean it's a good piece in general, but it's going to get in the way of something no matter where it goes. You know, B7 is a better square, and that's the Kasparov Karpov match thing, where Kasparov would bring the bishop to D7 and go back to C8 and B7. Very, very odd and very famous thing. But anyway, bishop F3 now, kind of a routine move. Bishop is a little ugly, and it blocks the rook on F1. But it secures E4. That's like overprotection, and it also secures D5. You know, if you put the bishop on D3, just saying, it has some ghost effect here. Obviously, black can take it at some point, but you don't control E4 and D5. You control just E4. If you put the bishop on F3, you control E4, and you also radiate control of D5. So in a sense, like, this move improves our control of E4, but it actually hurts our control of D5. Whereas bishop F3 radiates here. I like to call that X-ray, sort of radioactive control of D5. All right. Now, Sammy with rook C8, which is an absolutely typical looking move. And, you know, bishop F3 preemptively protecting against this exchange sack, which probably can't be played anyway. And yeah, this is important to mention, as Mr. Slow is pointing out, we keep good control of G4. So there's no issues of black coming into G4. And in addition, we have G4 controlled. So this looks really good. Nefyedov approved. And now we see a hallmark kind of Geller move. This is an issue, right? So that's why, obviously, you know, I suggested Queen D2 before. We keep that protected. But this is a cool way of doing it because, and Shemkevich talked about this in Chess Life years ago when he did an article. He did a series of articles about the Scheveningen. And Leonid talked about this, probably using like a game like this, for example. That's a very nice idea to transfer the rook to D2, but also you're keeping C2 protected. You're kind of like the best of both worlds here. So there's Sebalo game where he lost against Marjanovic back in 1985. Playing bishop E6. Bishop E6 is, it's kind of weird because you moved the bishop already, but, you know, okay, it's the middle game now. And Sabalo was a tremendous Sicilian player. And even very strong in 1985. But, I mean, it's okay. It's better to play something where the bishop's not so easy to attack. I don't think this is an easy position for black to play. I don't know. This is kind of counterintuitive. We already moved the bishop. Rook D2 is coming. What is black supposed to do, though? You know? It doesn't seem like he really has a good move. Bishop C6, played by some guy, Cedric the Wise. This is a random game. Possibly correspondence, I'm not sure. Walter Whitman passed away last year. He was a very good player from Austria. Or this year, maybe. I can't remember. But I don't know Mark Whitman. Same spelling, I think. But probably French players there with the MARC. So bishop c6 attacking e4 and supporting d5. But what's the difference? We're still playing rook d2. White is good. You know, white is better. Much better. I mean, ultimately, maybe rook e8, trying to put pressure on the e4 pawn indirectly. So Sammy plays rook c4, which is creative, you know. He's thinking maybe wants to be active. It's a risky looking move, but it's also active, and he could possibly, like a dragon, you know, triple on the c file. He's kind of I don't know how to, almost like maximalist, you know. This is a maximalist move by Reshevsky. The rook is unprotected, So it can be attacked at any moment by bishop e2, attacked by the knights. A knight coming back to d2 can be very problematic. And it's obviously a major candidate right now. Any moment that knight can pop back to d2. But here Geller does something surprising. This, and Sammy was a very strong strategic player. I would imagine Reshevsky would underestimate this move. I know I would probably underestimate this move. Because in general, it's a bad move for white. In the sense of pawn structure, it's a bad move. We now trade, and we trade in a favorable way for black. You're trading your f4 pawn for the d6 pawn. A strategic player like Reshevsky is going to be like, oh, Geller's probably not going to do that. You know, why would he do that? Why would he improve my pawn structure and hurt his own? After takes, now we have these two isolated, these two here, these three islands against two. You've improved black's structure here. But the thing about Geller, as opposed to Reshevsky, was that he was much more like all around Geller. Reshevsky wasn't bad tactically, but he was, I think, a very strategic player in general. Whereas Geller was kind of good at everything, and he could combine tactics and positional play. So here he's playing a surprising move. What is his point, right? There must be a reason why he would do this. He knows this is like helping black, right? Improve his bishop and fix his pawn structure. And look, there's nothing on the F file. But guess what? There's something on the D file. There's a D file. There's a D file. So what are you going to do? We're threatening bishop g5. White to move bishop g5. I acerbate. If you could move twice in a row. Move 11's always with the abstract stuff. He's always with the abstract stuff. The c5 square. And the d6 square. Move 11. While you're at it, don't forget about control of d6 here. Very important. c5, d6. But I think if white is to play, he's probably winning by force. Very nearly winning by force. I mean, bishop g5. So he's threatening bishop g5. How do you deal with that, you know? The c5 square is covered twice, so it's not an issue yet. But move 11 is correct. Black's problem being tied down to the a5, and this is giving me very bad memories of my earlier Hungarian team championship game. You know, h6 should be considered stopping bishop g5. What do you guys think? Well, I think that Geller would have done the same thing he did in the game. Maybe. Probably. Bishop b6 is the great threat. Yeah, I mean, that's again what burned me in the Boleslavsky against this kid, you know. What caused me problems. The stupid b6 square. Queen c7, queen g1. And now, this is what happened to me. You know, I feel like this game was in my mind or something when I lost that game. I was like, oh yeah, bishop d8. I think I was like subconsciously influenced by Reshevsky. And seeing this game, you know, bishop d8, I'm a genius. It's important to be optimistic when you play chess. And it's entirely possible that Sammy thought he was okay here. Temporary, it's only temporary. We can put our rook on e8. Everything's under control. Rook d1. And, you know, the problem is this piece never was stable on c4. And by the way, we end up cutting off its retreat. So a lot of times you lose and you end up saying to yourself, man, I was too optimistic, and probably the truth is that Sam Brzezinski's position was difficult anyway after the opening, which is typical for him. But, he was kind of optimistic with rook c4. And a5. a5 was very optimistic, wasn't it, against Geller to play a5. But I guess it was a known move at that time. So now black plays bishop c6, and now that rook is, like, confined. But he's got triple attack on e4. That's serious. So move 11 with the spoiler alert. Move 11, have you seen any good movies you can spoil for us lately? Maybe tell us the ending or who dies, anything like that. So white now plays bishop c5. That rook is boxed in. We're threatening to win the exchange. How about a nice active exchange sacrifice for black here? Well, okay, if you sacrifice the exchange, how are you going to sacrifice it? What if we play knight takes e4? Oof. So, sorry, go forward. Bishop c5. The problem is we take the rook, we're going to take the bishop too. So that rook isn't just an exchange. He's going to lose the rook, and then he's going to lose the bishop because we're doubled on d8. So Brzezinski has to play. He has to defend here. And the only other move I can think of... No. You got to play rook e8. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is brutal. Really nice play by white. Now, all along we were thinking of that rook being a problem. But we're looking at bishop e2. This, for example. That's a good exchange sack. I mean, rook takes c4, knight takes c4, knight takes c4. I would imagine that's playable. Bishop e2 isn't enough. Not to mention knight takes well, no. Yeah, rook takes e4, I guess. I think the materialistic player here, club player, sees the rook trapped and says, oh yeah, I'm winning the exchange, Bishop e2. This is far from clear. Reshevsky beats that guy, the club player who plays bishop e2. Rook takes e4. Now what? Knight takes e4, knight takes e4. This is defended. Rook takes c3. Okay. Better. Even better. Is it though? No, the knight is hit. I don't know about that knight on there. But yeah, it's possible. That's also possible here. There's some nasty tactics though. Like, still in the position, there's this thing with rook takes d8. That's probably not working though, right? Rook takes d8, bishop b6, rook takes d1. Yeah, it works. Bishop takes. But who knows at the end of the day? Yeah, this is unclear. So, but a very nice move now. Queen f1. Who expected queen f1? You just played queen g1. Where did it come from? So now Sammy has to sack the exchange. So there's this, and this. Or rook d4. But I mean, rook d4 looks stupid. This, I guess, is conceivable. You're still going to sack the exchange. You have 4 different exchange sacrifices. The only way to defend the rook is by playing b5, which doesn't help, So, which exchange sack do you like here? This damages the pawn structure, but your knight remains attacked. And I think here we do have a problem. Rook d8, bishop b6, no. No, we don't. So I don't know. What about Mr. Slow's suggestion? A rook takes c3. I know you didn't mean this position, but just to be fair, rook takes c3. there are all kinds of possibilities, but I think you have to take. And then knight a6 or a2. Alright, but he does this. He gets a good bishop for the exchange, but that's it, right? It's a whole exchange. At the moment, he doesn't even have a pawn for it. So it's not enough material. Queen e7, and now nothing fancy. White has to retreat. Which way? Okay, so how do we choose? Sorry, that's an absurd move. Thank you, delete. Or do we defend it? No, we don't defend it because it gets pinned. So we have to move it. I imagine even knight d5, no, that loses a piece. Alright, so he goes to d2. I guess from d3 he's just blocking his rooks. Alright, so here, bishop b6, queen e2, and now it's a matter of consolidation. There's nothing exciting here now. g6, knight b5, and there it is. Petrosian-esque. Get out of my house and take your crappy knight with you. This is pathetic, man. Rook a8. Ugh. That's terrible. And I love this. Knight c1. Here. Another beautiful move. Yeah, I don't know if I ever saw this game. It's not familiar. Knight a2, knight c5, knight c3. h5. Again, if black had a pawn for the exchange, he would have some compensation. But he doesn't even have a pawn for it. So Geller kind of just overprotects. He's got to be careful. Queen f8. And Reshevsky was tricky, and he could swindle people. Here. 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 Just repeating moves. Black now with some dark squares. You know, this is a little bit tricky. Trading queens, acerbate when you're down material. Black doesn't want that. Queen d6, trading queens, no. Queen d2, no. Repeating moves, time pressure. Queen f8, h3, rook e8, knight d6, rook d8, knight c4. Now there are discoveries, but I could probably sack my queen there. So bishop c7, knight d5, knight d5, ed5, and now this pawn structure here is dangerous. The pawn majority would be dangerous for white if it had time. You know, and as white's would too on the queen side, but black has very good dark square control. So Reshevsky plays knight f6 now. That's unfortunate because he gets in the way of his f pawn. But what choice does he have? Pressure is d5. And now queen g5. And this is protected, what? Twice. But it doesn't matter because we're on e5. So it's just a swap. d5 for e5. Knight takes d5, knight takes e5. And the closer we get to an exchange up with no compensation, the better. So Reshevsky reached the time control with queen g7. He was famous for being in time pressure. An analog clock, you know, very big time pressure guy. And yeah, I mean in blitz I would probably play knight takes c6. Wouldn't this work? I guess it doesn't matter. You know, like, you just... Well, it seems like it might matter. Well, everything's protected. Maybe it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. He played c4. So... I was just curious if this doesn't work. You know, queen g7, knight takes c6 first. It's not like our queen is getting trapped here. bishop f4. We always have this move. So, let's see. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, it looks like. Yeah, in fact, the engine actually likes knight takes c6 better, but it doesn't matter. Okay, you can't trap my queen, so Geller wins. All right, guys, happy Thanksgiving. That's it. No, I'm just kidding. We got to move faster, though. I took a lot of time for these first two games, and I've got an hour and 20 minutes. Hour and 25 minutes. So I got to leave it around turkey dinner at 2015. So I have an hour and 25 minutes to do the rest of the games. No more submissions, please. So this is just a position. This is Snedsteg against me from last week's tournament. It was a Sicilian. It was a Najdorf. It was a bishop g5 Najdorf. And I played the Vachier. H6, bishop h4, queen b6. And we got to this position, and I thought he was better in the opening, but then we got to the dynamic of, like, bad bishop versus good knight. Speaking of Scheveningen. Bye, guys. Mr. Slow, have a nice Thanksgiving. Classic German Thanksgiving party. Enjoy. Thanksgiving very big in Frankfurt, I heard. They have Frankfurters. Thank you, Mr. Slow, for joining us. We've got e5 knight, power knight against... It basically was like a Scheveningen against bad active bishop. Got to put on Magnum PI shorts and take care of the visitor's toilet. Uh-oh. Yeah, well, you don't have to clean it as nice as the home toilet. At Astrobait's house, they have home and away toilets. It's rather unusual, but... Alright, so Black has an amazing move here, and I was in sort of time pressure. So you're looking for back rank, and you're looking for discovered attacks. But it's not really about discovered attacks. You know, I'm looking at knight g4. And obviously if, like, bishop takes, you have queen e1, mate, in 2. But he could play rook takes, and all it is like a swap of pieces. And I'm down the exchange or whatever. You know, so I look at knight g4, I don't see anything. I see the back rank. I think I ended up playing rook f2, if I remember correctly. I can't play rook f4. You know, where else am I going to put it? This is passive. Rook f7, rook f8 are passive. So that was it. You know, I looked at knight g4. I looked at rook f4 that hangs a rook. I looked at rook f2, which I think I finally played. And that was it. And like, we both missed Black's move here, which is really nice. You know, this rook is also very important because it can defend the third rank. But I have queen h4. With the minor threat of queen takes bishop. So I should have seen it. It's a very clear, direct, threatening move. And Astrobait would have found it. Because that mate, he's in the toilet, but he's cleaning the toilet, but he would have found this. I mean, queen h4, he loves to throw the queen out there. I missed it. Because after this, we have this double threat. Double threat, mate. That and that. So, what's White going to do? I mean, his bishop's hanging and he can't take the rook. There is a defense. But actually, that doesn't hold either, right? Like bishop f3, knight takes, and we're still threatening rook e1 check. It's check. So I guess, no, I don't know. Maybe rook f3? Does that make sense? I think that's the answer. It's like a puzzle. Rook f3, knight f3, threatening mate. And then pawn takes f3. Well, that doesn't work. Well, this is check. You know, maybe white would defend for a while here with check. But doesn't black have a funny move now? Like, yeah. Rook e4. Well, that's sort of devastating, right? Knight d3. Say what? Knight d3? What did I say? We said rook f3? Oh, you're talking about like here? No. Well, no, because of check. You know, the problem is the stupid check here. No. Before queen h4? Oh. Oh gosh. Well, where's my position? Why is it going away now? Here? Yeah, I don't see that working. You're gonna have a problem there. I mean, we can never take here because of check. Yeah, alright, anyway. So it was a cool position. Knight g4, let's see with the computer. Rook f5, yeah. So this is only defense is rook f5, everything loses. Rook f5, he just loses a piece now. With queen takes e4. I'm threatening mate. And I'm threatening to take his rook. And now there is a cute idea, right? There is a cute idea. Check this out. Rook f1. Yeah, I don't think I could find this, right? I don't think I would find this, you know. I'm down the exchange with no clear threat. Queen e5. The way I'm finding this. This is crazy. This is computer. What the fuck? White's winning here. This is not working. Alright. That doesn't work. Yeah, we're looking at queen h4. That's it. Knight g4 doesn't work. So queen h4. No, there's no move. What did we even say? Rook f3? Knight f3? Gf3? Yeah, rook takes e4. This wins too. Even, yeah, we're just up the exchange. Anyway, alright, that was a fun position. Anyway, Yabadas asked me to go over this game from him. So he's white. Doesn't been on the stream in a long time. But he asked me to go over this game for the VOD. AKA Spectacular Camel. Who hasn't, you know, he doesn't come to the stream, but, you know, he still wants to be a part. So we play team game, Danish team championship. E4, C5, Knight F3, D6. And white plays the Kopek Sicilian. Never a fan of Danny, but he seemed to take a like to me. I don't know. He was always nice. He was a little bit weird to do commentary with. But sadly, he passed away years ago. So bishop d3, knight c6 is played by black. Now, the plan is in the Kopech Sicilian to play like c3 and then bishop c2 and d4. Shocking, right? White's score here is really good. That's just ridiculous. So that's a reason to play this, I think. I mean, a lot of people play bishop c4 against e6, including Adams, and this is a totally legit opening. But, bishop d3 a little underrated. And I think Kopech was onto something there, And Magnus uses this idea a lot in the bishop e5 Sicilians, but why not? So I think this is a mistake. Astrobate, we talk a lot about bowling, here on the stream. And it's ironic because we're putting the bishop on d3 and we're going to play c3, bishop c2, and then play d4. So I'm not sure the knight should be placed on c6. The question is really like, why? Was Kopech playing bishop d3 against any black second move? Yeah. Even against knight c6. He played it against knight c6. There you can see he beat Ivanov. He beat Alex Ivanov twice. 1990, 1989. He was very proud of that. And he was over 2,500. We had about the same max rating. Kopech and I both low 2,500s. He was much older than me. He was 20 years older than me. At least. But I remember him being proud of his wins against Ivanov. Ivanov really puzzled Ivanov. He beat him in the modern too, for some reason. I remember that. I don't know how many times he beat him, and Ivanov was tough in 1989, 1990. But yeah, Danny played it against Dlugi. There's a Dlugi game with knight c6 on move 2. So bishop d3, I think that black should play, like maybe g6 here. I like g6, What would Dubov do? But knight f6 is fine too. I don't understand why black's score is so bad against knight f6. I think you're still going to play g6. So anyway, there is a possibility of black playing bishop g4 at some point. Black plays knight c6, and then I said, I said the Yabatas, would you consider playing h3, but it's not necessary, so he didn't. He played c3. And then, it's funny that a few people have actually played this move before. Bishop g4. So, but I mean, what is black supposed to do? I had like a rapid game with Kopech once that was a draw, I think, but I don't remember how it went. I probably played knight f6 here. But I'm already thinking like maybe this isn't optimal for black with the knight committed to c6 so early. But I think knight f6 is much better than what black does. So he does bishop g4. This is scored alright, but I mean, not the highest standard of players ever. And now white plays h3. And, I mean, bishop h5 is... It's playable, right? I would think that would be kind of consistent. Bragi Thorfinson. But black takes. Oh, he doesn't. No, I forgot. Okay, yeah. Black played this. Yeah, he should take, right? Always take. Take. Now, how many times have we done this in Blitz? Like, we'll fork him. No, bishop b5 check. I've had that hallucination sometimes in blitz games. But still, okay. Queen takes, knight f6, bishop c2, and we're back to some kind of normal sort of variation. But black goes here. And it's funny now. Like, it's not a forced win for white. You would think, like, white would be winning. But it's just, like, better for white. Why am I getting a challenge here? 5 plus 1? No. No! So, the queen sacrifice is very interesting. Knight takes e5. Bishop takes e1. Bishop b5 check. And black resigns. But the trick is that black has this. So it's not so clear. After knight takes c5, d takes e5. And white is better, but not winning, because bishop e5 check, bishop d7. So it's not so simple. You know, Yabata decided he wasn't sure about knight takes e5. So instead he plays bishop b5 check, bishop d7, check. And now I expected black to take with the queen. I mean, it seems consistent. And then white probably would have traded knight takes e5 and been a tiny bit better. But he doesn't have to. But black takes with the knight. That doesn't seem right. You know, why are you retreating your knight back? Avoiding exchanges with black, you know, when you have less space. So it seems like you got to take with the queen here and be willing to play this type of structure where black is okay, you know. The pressure here. So knight takes, weird move, castles, knight gf6 attacking the pawn. And now you have a lot of options with white. I would kind of lean toward defending the pawn with a piece so that I could play for d4. But if white plays for d4, then he's putting pawns on dark squares. And you know, do you want to put your pawns on dark squares if you don't have a light square bishop? I'm not really sure. So he played a very safe move now, d3. This is passive, but it's safe, and you know, you're putting your pawns on bishop friendly squares ultimately, and your dark square bishop is mobile. Now black plays g6 is fine, and then the next move I thought was a little bit weird, but maybe it's okay. You know, I talked to people a lot about this, like moving this piece like just for the sake of moving it. And bishop e3 feels like developing for the sake of developing, and I've talked about this a lot, that this piece is already developed. However, that doesn't help the rook on a1, but I would suggest here a4, and that like indirectly developing our rook. That way the rook's developed, and so these pieces are developed from their original squares. Why not play a4? Yubatis didn't really buy into what I was talking about, but for me this seems very standard. We're playing a BOGO. We're playing knight a3 or knight d2 and knight c4. Our bishop doesn't need to move. You know, this feels a little contrived. So here black can play like b5 or something. He does that soon. Bishop g7. Why not a4? Knight on bd2. Castles. And now white plays d4. And I said maybe black should play e6 here, because that ends up hurting black. So watch what happens. b5, and this is maybe too early, but interesting. It's already interesting. But I think like takes, knight d5, e6, knight takes e3. Maybe it's not so simple. So he goes good move, queen e2, attacking the pawn, and now black plays rook b8 and e5, and this is very strong. This is very strong. So this threat of playing e6 ended up destroying black. It ended up just destroying him. And that's the problem. There's no like light square bishop for black. Here, this is a nice sacrifice. This looks very strong to me. And on this we have maybe pawn takes or queen takes. They're both good. So fe6, knight g5, and then white had missed this move, defending e6. But, you know, it's a typical kind of long-term pawn sacrifice anyway. You don't even have to get the pawn back to have compensation here. And then I like what white did. He took. And that leaves these pawns double isolated, even if we don't get them. Black should take with the pawn, I thought. Why didn't he take with the pawn? You know? Because it's not so easy. How are we going to get this pawn back? Not so easy. With our bishop, that stupid bishop that can't move. Which I was skeptical about this bishop and its development on e3. It's actually getting in the way of the queen and its ability to attack e6. Alright, so knight takes e5 makes it easy. We just trade off that crappy bishop, right? Now black has a kind of inactive bishop. Takes and get our pawn. Takes, check, king h8. And materials even, white has better structure. Bishop is shut down by the pawn on c3. Black's king is vulnerable. And knight e4. Controlling this. Threatening knight g5. White has a huge advantage. This is a nice move. And queen b3 looks kind of weird after c4. So he plays this. And then black offers a trade of queens, which I guess is okay. It also defends this pawn. White is clearly better, and I said, why doesn't black play actively here? So this bishop is a problem. It's a dead piece. I wouldn't mind putting my pawns on light squares and trying to push a5, b4, but it's kind of slow. Right, exactly. So how does black not play... How does he not play b4 here? I don't understand, you know. I mean, b4, you have to play b4. Exactly. This is... It's not clear to me that, like, white is winning. I mean, white is better, but now black has counterplay. And I said to him, maybe... Seriously, maybe... Here, you should play very carefully. And he even suggested an interesting move, which is b3, rather. This is not a bad idea. Or rook c1 with the idea of takes and b3. And maybe white is still a little better. The idea is to make that bishop on g7 bad and play for pawn structure. Black has 3 isolated pawns. But what black does... Okay, first of all, this trading queens is fine, but it improves white's structure, taking toward the center. And now, again, he has to play b4. This is an unforgivable mistake by black. Rook c6, too slow. Too slow, you know. This is passive. You can't play passive when you're worse. If you have a choice to play actively, you have to play actively. So he has to play b4. You know, it's one thing if it's like c4, but that's hanging. You know, you can't put your pawns. You would have to go here. Takes and like rook c1. And black could probably sack a pawn with something like c4. I don't know, you know. Or no, you have bishop d4 here. Yeah, now it's really... It's not even clear who's better, honestly, at this point. What's it say? It's like practically equal. So yeah, really important to defend actively. This is passive, and now white's better. Now b4 loses a lot of its power. You should probably still play it. This move, it's like, what is black doing? Rook fc8. And I think here you have time now. Although if b3 c4 isn't so bad. So white played knight g5, attacking e7, but that's serious. Suddenly the 7th rank is serious. I don't understand rook fc8, that was a bad move. Here, threatening that. Bishop f6, knight e6, and then black was obviously concerned about g5. And that's a serious, I like saying serious a lot. This is a I need another synonym for serious. There's not enough synonyms for serious. This is a problem in the English language. Get me a thesaurus. Thesaurus. How many synonyms for serious are there? Not enough. There's not enough. It is a really big problem. Big. That's the best I could do. H6, putting the pawn on the wrong color. It's a full cleaning. Rook d7, and now a6. F4, threatening g5, and now the horror. It's like Apocalypse Now when Marlon Brando says the famous line, you know, the horror. The horror. But what are you going to do about g5? g5. Oh no. So he had to do g5? He has another defense. Maybe black can play king g8, and on g5, well, you could free up the h8 square, but I don't think, I don't know if this is going to be enough, honestly. That's pretty uncomfortable, but it's better than nothing. It's still a bishop, isn't it? Seriously, is it that easy for white to win this? He's up a double pawn. Where's the mate, I don't see a mate. You see a mate? I don't see a mate. But g5 is over, as far as I'm concerned. f5, it's over. That's it. Game over, man. Another line from Apocalypse Now. As well as Alien, as Mr. Slow pointed out, but not the original movie. Rook d6. But it's too late for black here. I think black is lost. Rook d1, rook d1, rook d1. And now king g8. But it's a little bit too late. Rook d5, c4, a3, rook c6, rook d8 check. And now, oops, it's mate on f8. So black has to play king h7, which is definitely not good. And now we go in. Finally, the king comes in. And so this was like a 2000 player with black. He's not bad. a5. And I didn't like what Yabatas did here. He played knight d4, but I mean, it's such a pity with that knight on e6. I didn't check this with the computer, but had the feeling that knight d4 can't be right. But on the other hand, black is kind of threatening. He finally gets this idea to play b4. But wait, can't we just play rook b8? Okay, so if you play rook b8, you allow rook d6. Let's say rook b8, rook d6. Threatening what? Exactly. Rook takes b5. Check. King whatever. King f3. And now check. So this is a little bit weird, right? Like king e4, rook g3. This gets a little bit weird, Letting that rook in, it does allow some counterplay. So this knight d4, it's a forcing move. We got to do something, right? Okay, bishop takes d4 check. Phew, thank God. It's gone. But is this winning for white? Really? Black king is bad. He has a worse structure. A lot of weaknesses, Is black lost here? I mean, I'm skeptical. There's a weaknesses, right? Is he lost? It feels like it's not quite enough, Yeah, that's possible, Mad PC. It's plus 1.1. So, really tough endgame to hold against anybody decent. But, I want to know what the computer thinks about knight d4. So it's not the best move. The computer is not providing too much evidence. Okay, so my line is critical. Rook b8, rook d6, and now rook takes b5, rook d2 check, king f3. This is critical. Rook d3 check, and now not king e4, but like Mad NPC was talking about, we have other options. Going back, for example, king f2. But that's just repeating moves. So apparently king e2, and if rook g3, king f2, we trade, we get the g-pawn, and you get a5. It's still not easy, but anyway, it was better than knight d4. So knight d4 is a mistake. And after this, black might be able to hold, but it's not easy. Yeah, and black just collapsed. He played this, rook b6, and our king just walks in. And now, I still can't believe black didn't play b4 here. He's lucky I'm not like his chess coach or something. I would kill this guy. The whole game you didn't play b4. Everyone in the room saw b4 except for you, you know. This is your last chance, man. It's your last chance. It's your last chance. You gotta play b4 now. I mean, come on, bro. He's gotta do it. There's no other hope. And after this, it's over. It's too late. He's like, no, I don't want to attack I want to attack the head of the pawn chain, not the base. E6. Yeah, well, the Benoni isn't as good as the Benko. That's it. Fe6, king takes e6, king c5, it's over. Here, check, takes, whatever. Yeah. It's just everything fell apart. And then white almost managed to find a way to screw this up with the fancy rook f5. This is really not necessary, but it's actually winning. Just by a tempo. It's a race. Rook b8, rook f2, king e5, king d3, rook d8 check, king e3, rook b8, rook c2. Could have put the king on c2 too. Now we're threatening this, here, king f2. So he did this the long way. King f4 and then c4. Rook behind passed pawn, very problematic. King takes g4, c5, rook b7, c6, rook c7. So we're cutting it as close as we can, but we're still winning. Check, king f5, king f3. I don't know about that move. I'm interested in g4 check. Would that win? No, I'm not so sure. Our king needs to get over here so we can push the b pawn. King f3, h5, rook c5 check. That was actually pretty good. King f6, king e4. Now we're winning. There's no counterplay. Or too little counterplay, too late. It's too slow, and white wins. All right, good game. We've got, I'm going to skip mine because it's not enough time. I've got an hour left. I have to go. So we have 1 hour to do Nefedov. We got plenty of time. Nefedov, Sung Prison, and Mad NPC. All right, that's 20 minutes a game. We're good. We're good on time. So Crombie, Crumble Stiltskin versus Nefedov with black. The great Nefedov. Guys, thanks for donating. Gift subs are off, 35%. If you want to support your favorite chess streamer, and that doesn't have to be me, although it should be, please do donate and donate, cash in bags, too. Next week I'm out. I'm going to Prague to play poker, and I'm on a poker hiatus for 2 weeks. So this is your last chance to donate this week for 2 weeks. All right, and subscribe. C4 from Crumble Home. I love that guy's name. He's 2048. Now, these are ECF ratings, I guess. I don't know how the ECF ratings, which are relatively new, compare to FIDE. Maybe someone in the know, like Nefedov, could give me a clue. Because I used to have an old 3-digit I had an old 3-digit ECF rating back in the day, but it probably got like deleted in the archives somewhere. So Nefedov playing knight f6, and now Crumble Home playing knight c3, and Pavel has his systems here. Wow, this is actually kind of surprising. This feels like, I don't know, Nefedov, if you're here, but this feels to me like you prepare for this specific player. Because I mean, I guess it's supposed to be 1-to-1 Elo. But I mean, the question in reality, only, you know, people with those ratings can tell me, you know. I don't know if there's inflation or deflation or what. Like, I know about Danish ratings. Yabata said they're kind of close, maybe a tiny bit inflated versus FIDE. FIDE's becoming more and more deflated. So I have the feeling you specifically pair for this player, because when you play c6 here, white can play e4, and that's sharp and taking you out of your normal repertoire. So I think if you play c6 in this position, you have to know this guy is not going to play e4. Because if he plays e4, you're going to have to go into, I don't know what that is, you know. So Pavel has some groupies. Otherwise, Nefedov would play what here? Like, you would play what? What else? c5? You play c5 normally, no? C6 is okay, but there's a problem with e4. So Nefedov knows his opponent doesn't like playing e4 or something. Therefore, he can exploit his move order. e4 is a strong move, and you know, black can obviously play like an old Indian. I had this position with Hikaru. Was it Hikaru? I had this position against Hikaru. The game where it was a blitz tournament in 2003, he was lost. I had a queen and king versus king, and he just kept knocking over all the pieces. He played this against me. So with Hikaru, we had this like knight f3, bishop b4 or something, and I got an advantage, and almost beat him. I should have beat him, but he drew, and I lost the match 1.5 a half because I lost with black. I don't remember how that game went. The only time I've played blitz with Hikaru like live, and I don't know if we played online or not, but it always sticks out because it's kind of an unusual line. But I mean, I guess it's black's best move in this position. d5, e5 is... It seems kind of dubious for black, but playable. Alright, so anyway, Pavel playing mind games. He tricks him into playing the Slav. You know, by the way, I mean, actually, Pavel, why even bother? I mean, why don't you just play c6 in the first place? I mean, normally you could do that, right? What would you possibly not like e4? But this guy's not an e4 type of guy anyway. I don't know. Maybe he was hoping for something else. Like, maybe Nefedov was hoping for like g3 or something. Maybe he didn't know if he would play knight c3. But obviously you can play c6 on move 1. Okay, so knight f6, knight c3, c6, knight f3, and now it's a Slav. And now white has two choices, right? 3 choices. Take d4 or e3. Not a lot of options. So he chooses to play d4, which I think is, you know, best move. But how much does our opponent know about the Slav? Well, English players can't really avoid the Slav in Queen's Gambit. So if they are English players and that's all they play, they should be pretty well prepared. So d takes c4, and you mentioned that we had the same game, right? So d takes c4. Now, the best move for white here, of course, a4. The Geller Gambit isn't great. e3 is very kind of lame, although I think that move might be okay. I saw Portish win a nice game with it before he became completely inactive. a4, and then main line, bishop f5, and now of course knight e5 is best, but that requires immense theoretical knowledge from white. This was one of the most popular variations in chess in the 90s, and the theory is just like endless. So, unless you're like a super sharp opening bot, I would stay away from knight e5, which is what I do. We play e3, the classical long variation or whatever. e6, bishop takes, c4, bishop e4, castle, castle. Although you don't have to castle here. I lost to Gabriel Schwartzman once. I had studied this years ago with a very good friend of mine, Jorge Samor Hasbun, and Jorge was just an absolute opening, monster. We looked at this, and knight on bd7 is much more sharp because black doesn't castle right away, but it's also dangerous. Like I saw a few years ago, the normally solid, what's his name, John Bartholomew, I think lost playing this line against someone good in Gibraltar. This is a risky way for black to play. So there's oftentimes like pawn sacrifices and stuff. So I like castles. It's more solid. You're committed to playing kind of solid style. Queen e2, knight on bd7, and now there are other sidelines probably, but this is main line. And now e4 is the main line. I had that many times with Nefedov, but also over the board. I had this against 2 grandmasters at least with white. Both games were draws. It's a very, very solid line for black. But knight h4 is older, I think, even than that. This is like, no, actually, I'm lying, right? I'm thinking of this move. This is the other move, knight h4. That was what Karpov used to play. It's in my best games. Karpov had played knight h4 back in the day. I always thought it was such a weird move, though, But after queen e2, okay, it doesn't make so much sense. So yeah, this is kind of weird. Yeah, no, this is weird. I don't know. Knight h4 is normal, but not after queen e2. So actually, this is funny. I don't think I've ever seen this played. The judge, I was trying to think of his name, Frank Kolsky. On my chess team, there's this guy who's a Hungarian judge. And I was joking that in Germany, they have a stronger judge. Because the guy in Hungary is just an FM. But in Germany, they have Frank Kolsky. He's a GM judge. If you're going to have a judge, you go all the way. You want a chess judge, you want him to be a GM, not an FM. I mean, FM is nothing. They didn't like my joke, though, So, knight h4, and queen e2 end up not really having any kind of connection. They're just like two different moves. Now, one thing I would wonder about is, like, could there be some scenarios where you're playing on the e file and, like, he takes on f5 and the queen is supposed to go on c2 a lot of times, probably, so it doesn't get exploited on the e file. So you could leave your bishop on f5. Theoretically, someone even played rook c8. Frank! Oh no! The judge played rook c8. Can you believe it? What's the chances? Now, if the judge can play rook c8 and draw against a strong grandmaster, I mean, it's probably okay. The point would be that queen, what is it? Why is it on e2? Here, what does it do on e2? It's just like vulnerable on the e file. He's going to have to lose a tempo going to c2. which happens anyway, I guess, in some lines. Um, so rook c8 is even possible. But maybe Nefedov knows theory. I mean, there's always bishop g4, and then white has to play f3. And then, the standard sort of stuff with bishop h5. This is beyond my theoretical knowledge level of Slav here. Black has knight d5. Interesting. Just a few games. F takes g4, queen takes h4. But it looks reasonable and very solid for black. But I mean, I think the moral of the story is that Nefedov has to figure out what to do. And he has more than one option. And so even grandmasters aren't sure what to do here. Knight b6 feels wrong. I mean, who played that? That doesn't seem right, dude. This knight, it's performing an important function here in the center. You don't play knight b6. That's a fish move. So bishop g6, okay. Fine. I wonder, actually if this could transpose to something. But I mean, still, I don't see how we're justifying playing queen e2 and then having to move it again. But we transpose. Interesting. So you transpose with bishop g6. You know what, though? I mean, sometimes the knight is on e5, and then you play knight d7, and then white takes. That's what it is. That knight is coming from the wrong place. He's normally putting a knight on e5, black's going knight on bd7, then white's taking on, and you're taking with the h-pawn, and we transposed. And so this queen will come over here to look at the light squares. If you play e5, white will play queen c2, attacking g6. That's a favorite trick of mine. Yeah, rook d1 very solid. I think I had this position with Rick Delon, another guy who tragically died. One of the only games I ever won in this variation with white in the World Open in like '98. I don't know when it was. It was a long time ago. He was an IM from Maryland. Good player, and he died very young, like in his 40s, or even younger. I don't know how old he was. He might not have even been 40. I'm not sure. Queen a5. We had the same game with Rick, I think. But I forgot. Against Rick, I don't remember what I played. I might have even played knight a2. But I remember this. I remember studying this now, Pavel. I forgot when I was playing you during the simul game, because I haven't been playing this variation much at all. I had to go back into my old bag of tricks. So when I played you, I forgot about queen c2. But that's probably white's best move. Although this is interesting as well. We might have even had this before, but I don't know anything about the theory here. So I don't know. I don't remember playing, like, hanging a pawn against Rick. I know I played knight a2, bishop d2, and now Nefedov with queen h5. That's what you did against me. Trading queens isn't the issue. White can play f3, then you have bishop d6, but I mean... Okay. I mean... I don't know. I don't know. This is a theoretical novelty. Kind of surprising, actually. Surprising that no one tried this. Because if white trades queens, you have a choice. So Nefedov drew. It's probably better to take with the pawn. I agree. Undouble your pawns. But I don't think... Oh, Gorechkina had the same game as you when she was like 5 years old. Nefedov was playing like 5-year-olds. 5-year-old prodigies. You could take with the knight. I mean, it's not absurd. Because you create, less pawn moves is less weaknesses. I don't think it's insane to play knight takes. But no, I mean, this is probably better, objectively. But, white here is being unambitious. I mean, I was playing a simul, so I don't know. But if I was playing a long game, I would seriously consider f3. Obviously, if bishop d6, white can play g3. But this is going to be in the mix, It's a very tricky position to handle for white, because white is a little overextended. I don't think queen h5 is so bad. And the computer is going to say white is better by like a tenth of a pawn or something. Well, it's more. Wow. I didn't think so. But, this is important, guys, to emphasize this, really. That doesn't mean anything in over-the-board chess. The fact the computer says it's 0.7, every variation of the King's Indian is at least 0.7. When we're talking about space advantage, and it's saying plus 0.7, you got to be really good to exploit that, So I wouldn't care about that too much. But it is rather unambitious for black here. So you're supposed to play for e5. The double-edged thing about e5 is that you're obviously weakening your white squares. So if you play e5, the nice thing is that queen isn't on c2. See, that's why they're supposed to play queen c2. It's take the. You see Kasparov Kramnik, rook d1, queen a5, queen c2. But you take some of the mojo out of black's e5. If black plays e5, bye bye. Queen takes g6. How do you like them apples? There was this guy, Ron Henry, who blundered that against me in the U.S. Open once. Not this exact position, but the same tactic. That's embarrassing, To be a national master and blunder queen takes g6. It was a King's Indian or something. Yeah, but queen c2 is better. All right, Nafedov, good draw. Very nice draw. A beautiful draw you got there. Big draw for Nafedov. So now we got Sung Prism. Last two games, Sung Prism and Nakam Salman. So Sung Prism is, I'm assuming, white, although I'm not actually sure. Could Sung Prism be black? Let me check. He didn't send me any message with this game, I don't think. Is he here? Quietly? Alright, well, I don't know what color he is. Wait. You're white. Okay. You played the Caro-Kann, though. e4, c6, d4, d5, knight c3, d takes c4, knight takes c4, knight f6. I just want to say that on Sunday, my team lost 9-3 and scored a half point out of 6 with white. And our team scored 2.5 out of 6 with black. And the only game where black won a sort of nice game was with black in this knight f6 Caro-Kann, the board next to me. We'll see what happens in this game. So knight g3, knight c3, knight g5, all of those variations are really not critical. White sadly has to play knight takes f6 check. I don't know if maybe this is interesting. Not a big deal. Bishop d3, Alekhine gambit. Black needs to know what they're doing. But objectively, okay, this is critical. Now e takes and c3, bishop d6, bishop d3, castles, and now white plays queen c2. So the kid on my team, his opponent, who's an older IM, played the knight e2 here. And now I just have a question, right? The old IM played knight e2. My teammate, this young kid who's quite strong, he's an FM. He played rook e8. White castled. and black played knight d7, but I didn't get something about this, right? I didn't get this. Why is black playing knight d7 here? Because he's playing an old IM and he figured a draw is okay? Isn't knight d7 kind of lame? Because after knight d7, white plays bishop f4. I couldn't believe it that the kid managed to win this against an experienced player. The experienced player got in an endgame, and the kid played really well. But normally, like, black has very little winning chances here. I think this is a mistake for black to allow this, you know. The question is, how big of a mistake is it? Like, queen c7 has some problem. It looks like, theoretically. Very few games here, and white has a lot of wins. And that was played by Dreyev and Sarawan. So knight d7 is safer. It's probably in chessables. What about knight a6? I mean, knight f8 doesn't seem really necessary, you know, and the knight can go here. It's very useful. So I don't know. I don't like this knight d7. But anyway, your opponent played queen c2. This is a sharper move. And now you played h6. So do what you want. But I don't understand why we're playing h6 here. Because everybody plays rook e8 check and h5. It's possible to play h5 right away. I don't know. Is it like an inaccuracy? Does it transpose? Because normally it's rook e8 check. White has the option to play bishop e3, but usually knight e2, and then h5. This variation is all the rage, and it seems like it's absolutely fine for black. Though, you know, okay, it's complicated, and with chances for both sides. So, okay, whatever. That's like mainline. That's all the rage. That's theory. That's Stockfish. Who's the world champion? Stockfish. I finally realized that today. Magnus Carlsen is not the world champion. You know, Gukash is not the world champion. Ding Liren is not world champion. The world champion is Stockfish. It just dawned on me today. And we can all consult the world champion at any time. That's cool. You know, that's why chess is getting easier. But h6, a little slow. Fine. I don't like this move, though. It's not dynamic. The problem with h6 is that it's not dynamic. You know, there was an interesting move. Nefedov had f5. Wait, it wasn't this position. It was after check. Check, sorry. Check 92, f5. Some person, did you see when we went over this? The Marshall Gambit style gambit. Played by Gukash and Yesipenko. Yeah, h6 I don't like. You need to know if you're going to play this opening, man. You're playing a trendy opening. You're playing a very trendy opening, and you don't know the theory of the trendy variation. That might work out in your favor, though, because your opponents are probably going to be prepared for h5. Everyone who has a subscription to the latest, you know, information site like Chessable or whatever is going to be almost specifically prepared only for h5. So h6, knight e2, rook e8. This is old news. So now white apparently wants to castle queenside. I mean, castles is safe, right? They can't play bishop f4, so bishop e3. You know, maybe this is a transpositional kind of thing. I don't know. Knight d7. And castle's queenside. So black's score is not looking too healthy here. Your problem isn't losing a king and pawn game. Your problem is like coming under direct attack. Well, you have both problems to worry about. You can lose a king and pawn in game, or you can come under like a crushing direct attack. But you're white, so that's not a problem. I mean, just like I'm talking like in general. I keep thinking you're black because you play the Caro-Kann. I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyway, I like white. All right. Black plays queen a5 now, which is a horrible move. Worst move of the game. Unbelievable. Alright, so queen a5 is awful. I hate that move. I don't know where to begin with it. It's awful. King b1. And, well, bro, like, what does this have to do with this? You know what I mean? Nothing. How Mate Sebenik could play this is beyond me, you know, because the guy's a pretty good player. I mean, I guess he was playing at 2100 and he just didn't take him seriously and played whatever and he beat him anyway. But for a solid Grandmaster... See, two Grandmasters played this with black and they both beat like random 2100s. But I don't understand the significance of putting your queen on a5 when you're supposed to be like doing like a pawn storm or something like... That's a basic Sicilian rule. You don't put your queen on a5 when you're trying to like push your pawns. Yeah, of course. The queen is misplaced, you know, here. Exactly. Maybe on c7, but not on a5. Definitely. This is very strange. Janza beat this fish. Alright, so g3. Could you please pass the Grey Poupon? Did you ask him to pass the Grey Poupon when you played this move? You don't know that commercial. It's an old American mustard commercial. So, boy, that's a slow-looking move. G3. He's like doing a pawn storm to you on the queen side. So Kavalik won with white in 1982. Janza won in 1983. One of them played g4 and one of them played bishop h7. I mean, obviously g4 is more business-like. I don't really get the point of bishop h7 check. It's funny how they're both, you know, from the same country, Czechoslovakia, and both played and won with this position in around the same year. Lukavalik was already in the States. He should have already been in the States by 1982, of course. Kavalik was probably playing like an Olympiad or something for the U.S. in 1982. He could have played on the U.S. Olympic team. I don't know. It's funny, Janza was 2440 in 1983. He was like 2440 in like 2013, probably. Still alive. G3 slow. So how does G4 work? Black plays knight b6. Oh, this is beautiful, man. This is beautiful. See, that's the thing. We're hesitating because the pawn's hit, right? Janza doesn't care. He's like, oh, guess what, bro? Nice knowing you. You're a genius. You're a member of Mensa. I don't care. I'm going to kill you, you know? Black, this like obnoxious guy who's... He brags in his profile that he's a member of Mensa and shit, you know? Like, who cares? What kind of person would do that? This is beautiful. G4, and you don't need to tell people you're a genius, you know? You're not a real genius if you do that. I mean, who puts that they're a member of Mensa in their, like, chess profile? That's gross. Anyway, Yeah, no, this is brilliant. Jansa's just like, haha, nice knowing you, h4. Now that's serious. And I wonder, how Kavalek played it. So what is the point of bishop h7 check? Kind of, Kavalek doesn't care. He's probably going to do sort of the same thing, but just with bishop on h7. But I don't really see the benefit of putting bishop on h7. What is the benefit of putting bishop on h7? Black has the extra option of like king f8 or something. Do you guys understand this move? I mean, is there a rook lift to d3 or something? That's a very odd move. So what does he do after king h8? Ah, he plays bishop b4. Yeah, it's sort of artificial though. I definitely like Jansa's play better. I mean, this is much more businesslike. It saves us the time, because I think that some people would be like, oh, rook g1, it just takes forever to open this up. Jansa, a very experienced grandmaster, he's not playing this on a whim. He's probably had this before in Blitz or whatever other games that aren't in the database. This is like 1983. He's like, I don't care, man. I dare you to take that pawn. So knight b6, h4, bye-bye. Knight d5, g5, bye-bye. Knight takes e3, f takes e3, f takes g5, nice knowing you, h takes g5, and you might as well just resign at this point. Dude. White is 2340. Black is 2340. Come on, man. This is a joke. E4. This is totally over. Alright, so g3 is too slow. Knight f8. You played in a very positional manner. Sung Prism, but you don't do this if you're castle opposite sides. I think this is dangerous. You're like playing sharply, and then you're, oh no, I want to play a quiet positional game. We're going to trade off his dark square bishop. So it's a little bit inconsistent. It's probably still okay, but as strange as it seems, I half wonder if Black should consider playing bishop e7. In all seriousness, because what are you going to do to me? I mean, this is a sharp position with opposite side castling. If he plays bishop e7, yeah, that's what he did. I think it's a smart move. He could trade though. It's looking kind of like torturous for Black, but maybe he's still fast enough here. Some b4, I don't know. b4 c4. What are you gonna do? b4 c4. This becomes weak. Yeah, maybe that's the best actually. Black has to do something. Okay, what he did is interesting. Bishop e7. Now h4. But what's the point? Just to secure your bishop? I mean, it looks like we should be going for g4, but I guess we're not doing that. So at this point, I really don't know what we're doing. h4? Not sure what we're doing. Bishop e6, and now b3. And now Black realized, oh, my queen is on a stupid square. Okay, it goes here. And you're like, oh yeah. Yeah, but I mean, okay. He has your bishop on f4. Your knight can't move. You're doing weird stuff. Black at this point needs to wake up. You can't play bishop b8 or rook b8. That's the one good thing about your bishop on f4. That's the only good thing about your bishop on f4. Can he play c5? Then he gets forked. You take and fork him with b4. He can't play c5. He can't play rook b8. So it's awkward for Black too. He goes here. Okay. You play bishop e3. Fine. But now you have a square for your knight. So that helped you in a way, but I don't know what he was supposed to do. Now he plays queen b7. Yeah, this is slow. Kavalek is excited. No, bishop e4, bishop d5. We need to go knight f4 first. Now he's like, oh yeah, I found my a pawn. No time for Kavalek here. Although, you know, I mean, who knows? If a4, b4. So you just took his bishop away, which is probably okay. And then he takes with the knight. And now, okay, we've simplified a little. White squares are fair game, right? But how to make progress? Now you shifted to kingside pawn storm. Of course, it's much safer now that the light square bishop's off the board. Although he has good control of g5. Your attack isn't quite as dangerous as Jansa's. It's still dangerous. Yeah, again, I don't like h6. The whole thing. What's the advantage here? Can we get, what's his name? Schumacher? This is like, he's playing, did you play Schumacher? Are you sure? This isn't a game with Schumacher? From the stream or something? He likes to do this type of stuff. Black's sort of hanging on. Plus a half pawn. And b4 is the best move. Wow. I did not know if this is the best move. So kudos to black. Dark squares. Computer agrees. World champion agrees. He had what? You had this against him, but not this one. Yeah. It plays a lot like him. It plays very similar to the way that Schumacher played against me in a previous game. Now obviously you'd rather not open up. So c4 is recommended. But the problem with c4 is that this becomes a target, but I don't know, I mean, c4 still seems like the default move here. You need a reason to not play c4. It still looks good. I mean, you're indirectly defending d4 with your bishop on e3 and your rook on d1. And you still have a kingside attack. So I'm a little nervous to see him opening up our position with b takes c. I feel like you're better off playing c4. The computer doesn't agree though. The computer surprisingly wants to take on b4, which is a really counterintuitive move. If c4, a4 is strong. Wow. Holy crap. And so there's some kind of craziness here. If you take b3, a takes b3, rook takes e4. And if you take with the queen, just queen a7, and he's getting you really brutally there. So c4 is actually a big mistake. And if you do play c4, he plays a4, you have to sit. This is awkward, man. So good that you didn't do it. I would have played this in a blitz game. But I didn't see how strong this was. This is very, very strong. So g5, excellent. Turns out that's probably best move. Takes. You still have an attack. He can take with the piece. Which piece should he take with, though? Maybe black should take with the bishop? I mean, trading pieces seems like a good idea for black. If he can get it. You still have play, but I would think that an exchange of pieces here would maybe ease his defensive task, to not take with the piece, to not trade pieces, I mean, Now it's like you played f4. This may be a very important moment in the game, man. Yeah, he has to take with the bishop. That's like the losing move. If he takes to the bishop, black is better, and he's up a pawn, and it's not clear you have enough compensation. Stockfish world champion just confirmed my my suspicion. That's a really weird move, you know? It's like, why would you not want to trade pieces facing an attack of this magnitude? Yeah, this is huge. Double question mark. And now f4. And now it's the floodgates. You know, you've got both bishops attacking here. You know, if he trades bishops, he knows he's safe on the dark squares, but now he can be attacked on both colors. You have stuff like bishop c4, mining that diagonal. Speaking of last game, now all your pieces are attacking. Oh, this is a nightmare. This is worse than the Mensa guy. Yeah, see, exactly. Oof. You're not going anywhere, Wendy. Check out the snowcat, Wendy. Check it out. Go check it out. Where are you going? You're not getting out of here. He's trying to get the snowcat to start up. But it won't work. Now there's got to be a lever here with like d5. f5, d5. Well, now he has a solid g5. I don't know if you're really right to do that. The important thing is that you cut off his access to the snowcat and he can't get out. He can't escape. So does this brute force methodology work here? You're going to have f6. And that's the key. Oh, rook sack right away. Wow. Because if f6, bishop takes f6. So this takes away his defender. Oh, God. And it looks like, oh, wow, everything, you know, we'll just take and we'll escape. Oh, no. There's a check on e1. That could be a problem. We don't like that check on e1. Now what do we do? You have a bunch of checks? Is it enough, though? Let's see. Is this really kosher? What? What's happening here? Let's go back a minute. Does this really work? Yeah, the stupid rookie one check. Takes f6. G takes f6. But wait a minute now. Keep feeling like you have something better. Rook h7. Rook h7 looks stupid. I don't know. Is this winning? Let's see. Oh man, there's only one move that wins. Holy shit. Wow. You're never going to find that. I'm never going to find that. Queen f5. That's high level. So there's got to be a better way to do this attack. I think you messed up the attack. You had something stronger. It's only Queen f5. Oh my god. That's crazy. That's too narrow of a margin. So I don't think you should play f5. Is there anything else, though? There's nothing else. Damn. There's literally nothing else convincing. That's crazy. Wow. Bishop c4 is best move. And f5 is best move. This is such a narrow margin. Wow. And this is best move. And you're winning, but only because of that one move. Like, you have to find this move. This is crazy. You have to find Queen f5. I mean, this is such a hard move to find. So there's suddenly another angle. That's the point here. I guess some sort of Queen c5. Bishop takes f7 isn't enough. Yeah, this is close, right? You're gonna get 2 rooks against the queen, and it'll be like perpetual. He's gonna just sack the queen for the rooks. There's nothing. Yeah, this is so hard to find that. So you played rook h8 check. Natural mistake. And now you're worse. But I mean, like in a fast line control or something, I don't know how you're going to find queen f5. It's such a hard move to find. And you can't trade pieces here. You know, at this point you pick off his pawns, you have compensation. Now, this becomes like tricky for black. So I'm not surprised you won the game. It's actually in a practical game, like it looks like one of Aronyan's sort of tricks in like World Cup play, you know. We sack the exchange, but our position's easier to play. And already white is better. Yeah, he's getting rook f7 now. And you blundered. So what's the move? Queen g4, king c7. Queen g4, king d8. Queen g4, king d8. Queen g4, king d8. How does that work? Rook h8. What, you're just taking his rook. Oh man. All right. So that's a win. This doesn't do anything. Just blitz. It's blitz. He got mated. All right. So interesting game though. You know, I feel like your kind of play was inconsistent in that game. You know, if you're gonna castle queenside in a type of line, I think it needs to be all in. You know, it's a pawn mutual pawn storm like Sicilian. You're playing like positional moves like bishop f4. That doesn't seem right, you know. All right, last game, Mad NPC. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. This is Mad NPC with black. We're playing a 1900. 4e5, classical chess. Knight f3. Knight c6, the Italian game. And very popular. I started playing the Hungarian defense lately. Okay, Knight f6, and then of course I'm always afraid of Knight g5. Nefedov, your hero, would play Knight g5 now. No, I'm just kidding. Nefedov plays black. All right, d3, bishop c5. Yeah, I would prefer to play bishop c5. You know, I prefer that. Allow the Evans Gambit. Evans Gambit is, in my opinion, not as good as or as hard to play against as this stupid fried liver thing. That's very hard to handle for black. Look at the score. 34-26. The fried liver with d5 is 34-26. It sounds like we're talking like women's measurements or something. But Evans Gambit, let's check it out. Evans Gambit accepted, let's narrow it down, is 28-29. So you tell me which you'd rather face. 28% for white, 29% for black, or like 36-29 or what? I mean, it's like clearly the Evans Gambit is less dangerous than knight to g5. I know Nefedov. We're just joking. He's so literal. Litarov. We're going to call him Pavel Litarov from now on. All right. Bishop c4, knight f6, d3, bishop c5, castles, and now we have a standard type position. And now h6 was played. h6 is a little slow. You know, somewhere I saw someone I don't really like talking about the bishop g5 Joko. They made a video for a chess site. And I'm thinking, like, that's a thing? Like, seriously? Gioco Pianissimo with bishop g5? You think that's a thing? That's a thing? That's just lame. I realize this is like a move in some positions, but I wouldn't consider it like a real variation that's like scary or anything. So the classical move here, in my, from my perspective, is like a6. A lot of people, well, Gukash or something, who was it recently? I saw play a5. Look at the score there. A5. White won one game once. That's modern. It's a modern approach. Oh, you know what it was? It was someone in the World Cup. It was some game in the World Cup. Now, a5, bishop b5, knight a7, that kind of stuff. But anyway, I've never been a fan of h6. It's not that it's passive. It's just like, I'd rather they play bishop g5 because that's their good bishop. And I really don't mind if, they want to go bishop g5 and possibly let me go g5 or trade it off. Or you can even come back with bishop e7 sometimes. But anyway, whatever. This is a variation. But this is a strange move. What's up with Nightitch streaming, by the way? Skewerly rating with party of 11. Nice. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for the raid. Guys, check out Skewerly. He hasn't been here in a long time. Nice to see him. What's up with Nightitch becoming a streamer? Oh my god. It's so weird. Alright. So bishop e3. It's just a move, it's not dangerous or anything. So now you can do anything. I really don't like taking these bishops and opening up the f file for the opponent. If the rook is on e1, then bishop takes e3 seems better. So if I were black here, I would prefer to play like bishop e6 or d6. This is also fine. You don't have to trade on white's terms. Having said that, it might be okay, But I think that you are creating some dangerous possibilities here for white. And that's like against classical wisdom. You didn't do it, I'm sorry. You didn't do it. Good for you. Sorry. Those guys did it. Those grandmasters. Those grandmasters don't know anything. I think they should play bishop b6. I agree. Bishop b6 or d6. Screw the grandmasters, man. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, why? Why play bishop takes e3? I don't see it here. I don't see it. And in fact, Mersian, son of creepy father, that I played years ago, actually lost with black here after bishop takes e3. So this looks good. And now white, yeah, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? Oh no, I'm so scared. Bishop e3. Why would these grandmasters play that? Bishop takes e3. I don't understand. Rook e1. Your opponent harmless. Now you can take. I mean, it's fine. Now they're going to take with the rook. They don't have to, but they probably will. And this is absolutely equal. But fine. D6 is fine too. C3. And I'm not an expert. I'm just a caveman. I don't know. It looks weird to play this, but it's possible to play knight g4. You would force white to trade on b6 probably. And then you're just going to go back. I mean, that's not the most constructive move in the world for white. I think you're only a tiny bit worse. But objectively, yeah. Castles is fine. And then knight on bd2. And the position is like dead equal. Here you have for the first time some thoughts of d5. but your e-pawn is defended enough. So rook e8 is kind of interesting. You have bishop e6, like a mirror image. So rook e8, with no knight g5, queen b3 can be met by a lot of things, including knight a5. That'd be embarrassing. Bishop takes a7, king f8, and white like loses a piece. So rook e8 looks pretty solid. Knight h5, that's a very aggressive move played by this player, who I don't know. I don't know, that feels kind of early to be playing knight h5. I don't know about that. And then knight e7, like a standard move. That looks very standard. But I'm kind of a fan of, and also, by the way, like bishop e6, what's wrong with bishop e6? I mean, that's mirror image, same thing. It's fine. It's very solid. What, on knight h5, knight takes c5? I mean, that's classical stuff. Good question. Must be something there. The queen getting trapped. It's a queen trap. Nothing major. You know, you just lose a queen. Don't worry about it. No problem at all. Alright. No, knight h5 is stupid. It's too early to be playing knight h5. That's, like, stupid. He's lucky to beat a 2000 player, whoever. This looks very solid. Imagine, like, Aronian was playing black here. What would he do? I'll bet you any amount of money, it would either be rook e8 or bishop e6, you know? And thirdly, like, knight e7 is also okay. But, like, this move looks pretty good. a4. This is sensible for both sides. a4, c6, whatever, you know? Okay, so you played what? You did knight e7. Oh, you did it. And white played h3. Okay, standard move. Knight g6, standard move. I'm surprised we're not transposing. You know, the weird thing that white has never played bishop b3, which is typical. If you play bishop b3, see, there's a couple games. Starua has a game with black. Leonardo Tristan, another. My friend Salvador beat him. Gaiska. But, no, this is very solid. So d4, and the problem is you have pawn fork now. So how's your tactics? Astrobate, what do we play now? That's why the bishop should be on b3. You have it here, don't you? You have this move, don't you? Knight takes e4. Now, if he wants to give you his light square bishop, we're more than happy to accommodate him. Like bishop f7, rook f7, thank you. The other possibility, though, of course, is in between moves. But this doesn't look dangerous. I mean, we're just taking. What's this? What is this? White lost a pawn. So he has to play knight takes e4, d5, and now what? That's forced. You can calculate this very easily. This much is forced. And now you have to think, okay, what happens next? What does white do now? Bishop takes e5 is fine. That's good for us. So he has to give a piece back. I would assume white would probably take, and you would take, and he would take, and you would take, and you'd reach this kind of endgame where black cannot be worse here. Black is lost. But he cannot be worse. What the fuck? Are you serious? Oh my god. Black cannot be worse. That's gotta be my best quote of all time. Wow. This doesn't work. Oh my god. That's crazy. Now I just wanted to make sure we weren't worse, and we're lost. Knight takes e4, knight takes e4, d5. I can't believe it. Knight takes e5, knight takes e5, d takes e5, d takes c4, queen h5, and black is lost. I thought, okay, maybe white is slightly better. I started to hesitate, thinking, yeah, I mean, this looks like one of Astorbate's games. We might have a kind of bad bishop. Black is lost. Lost. Alright. It's a good thing you didn't do it. Damn. Wow. I would have been strongly tempted to play this move. If he does anything normal, like bishop d3, you're fine. This looks quite equal. But this is actually pretty strong. Wow. What if we take on c4 now? It's better. We're down a pawn. After knight takes c4. This is like my Godfather variation. So it's too early. Okay, interesting. Interesting. These jokos are very subtle. Alright, this is a good move. I like rook e8. Rook e8 is rock solid. f7, you can protect it with rook e7 if you have to. Queen b3c, artificial. Queen b3, very artificial. Now you have a million moves here. Queen e7 is like an Alekhine variation. Now as long as the knight doesn't get to f5, rook e7 with idea of queen e8. Looks a little weird. I wouldn't have thought you were lost. I thought maybe white was slightly better. This is a solid move, but it's also a concession. It's still very solid. I like it. It's fine. It's great. It's very solid. You're playing correct chess. Rook a d1, and now you went knight h5. No, I don't know. Knight h5 can't be right. You're abandoning e5, you know. It looks like you have to play queen e7. I mean, what else are you going to do? Queen e7 is fine. What's he got? Takes. You could take even with the pawn, but no, you have to take with the queen. Takes. 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 It's a draw. This is a draw. Let's see what the computer says. Queen e7. You can also trade on c4, but I mean, I don't see why we should abandon the tension here. This is definitely bad. You're losing a little bit of your control of the center. I don't know. It looks dangerous to me. I mean, the normal plan is to take back with the pawn. The center is really important, and you know, your knight is out on h5 in a tense position. I think it was a mistake. Now you don't have a strong point anymore, so white is better. Knight takes c5, rook takes c5. White is a little bit better. Maybe it's almost nothing, but in the hands of like Magnus or some kind of strong grandmaster, it's a serious edge probably, or could be. This move, I don't know. So knight c4 doesn't work. Knight f3 doesn't work. a4 is interesting. But you can pile up. Yeah, you're not even threatening a5. So you do have coming back and putting pressure on that pawn. Yeah, okay, so this is probably best. I didn't like opening his file, but he needs to protect the pawn so he can play a knight move. Where should he put the knight, though? f3 or c4? Oh. Can I change my vote to c4? Still not so easy. Yeah, this is a good game by black. Now it looks like e5 is dangerous. You never moved your queen. Here's queen e8, you know. It looks like a good moment for queen e8, but he'll go here, and then this knight is very strong. So knight f4, okay. Dude, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. Knight f4. What about e5? You're going to play d5. Alright, guys, I got to go. Happy holidays. I'm just finishing this up. So d5. He should have played e5. This is a huge opportunity for him. He doesn't do it. You stopped him, and now it's a whole different... Now you're better. Now you might be better. Now you have serious threats. What is his queen doing on b3? Yeah. Now the whole game shifted. He lost the edge right there. And now he's, like, trying to equalize. Oh, beautiful tactic. Huh? Wow. Yeah. Nice tactic. Very good, very good. All right, guys. Happy holidays, and I've got to go. So, happy Thanksgiving. Nice job. I'll see you all tomorrow for some Blitz, and then Sunday Simul. Have a great weekend. Again, Blitz tomorrow.